Good morning, YouTube. I'm going to be covering some more Dota content today. But this isn't a gameplay content video. This is a mechanics discussion video. So, we'll see how this goes. So Dota just had a massive update. It is not the first time that Dota has had a massive update. And so, I want to talk about that. We've got all sorts of new abilities. We've got all sorts of new stuff. But what specifically we have is a massive paradigm shift inside of Dota. So in Dota, you get one skill point at level 1, and as you level up, you get more skill points. Over the years, they've added different content for empowering your abilities, such as in Dota 1, due to editing abilities and some limitations within the Warcraft 3 engine, there was Aghanim's Scepter, which was primarily used to boost ultimates, especially on mages that didn't really scale well, because spellcasters generally don't scale well in older Dota especially. And so Aghanim's Scepter became a core component of the game's design. Years and years and years later, we got Aghanim Scepters for every single hero. I don't remember the year exactly, but I'm going to guess it was around 2019 or 2020, somewhere in there. And then shortly thereafter, we got a second Aghanim Scepter type effect, sometimes a little lesser and definitely functions a little bit differently, a consumable item called an Aghanim Shard, which empowers maybe the same ability, maybe a different ability, or even adds an ability. But in execution, they function the same way. They both cost money in the game, gold in the game, and you have to buy it in game. Now, in 2017 or so, we also got patch 7.0, a massive shift in the paradigm of the game in general, so much so that they changed the leading number, the version number, to 7. In that, we got a new UI, a bit of an overhaul of some different things, but gameplay-wise, we got talents. And I will tell you that when they first came out, it was pretty rough. But talents are pretty cool. They allow you to adjust your hero across the game, and they aren't directly related always to specific skills. They might be just armor, or magic resist, or damage, or movement speed. In the early days of talents, we had some kind of annoying ones like revive timer reduced by 60 seconds. So you had heroes just in early and mid game just suddenly reviving instantly and teleporting into fights, and that was removed very quickly. But this week we have innate abilities. Now, a lot of these innate abilities are really just abilities that already exist. Many of them are levelable, so they're basically a level 0 of an ability, such as Tidebringer here, and then levels up like normal. Now, technically, we've had at least one of these already in the game on Medusa from last year's update, where she starts with Mana Shield. And then other abilities and other innate passives are more general, such as Dawnbreaker causing the sun to show the map and show where enemies are located, and very interesting strategic value there. Instant map hack there when the sun rises. And apparently this does work when certain heroes turn it day or night and it goes back to day. So we've got a lot of extra mechanics here that now is free. And as a designer, or as a wannabe designer, I'm going to say that this is pretty cool. And it's pretty common. In fact, League of Legends has already done this for over a decade, and Heroes of the Storm has also done this for probably its entire history as well, on many or most heroes. Maybe all, probably all. I am less familiar with Heroes of the Storm just because I've put less time into it, but I have played it quite a bit with friends, and I think it's quite a fun and actually well-designed game by Blizzard. It does come across as kind of a first MOBA, but I do think it's actually quite an interesting game, and that's where Dota seems to have taken its talents from, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where these innate abilities are inspired from. That they might be inspired from Heroes of the Storm, just as much as they could be inspired from League of Legends. So my question, however, to you as an audience is, was this necessary? What do you think? Was this necessary? I'm mixed, personally. I really believed in an older version of Dota that stayed a lot simpler and more strategic and interesting in that sense. The modern Dota is extremely brawly and is definitely inspired by some of the Heroes of the Storm or potentially other online multiplayer type games that tend to lean towards more brawl heavy, constant fighting designs. So I'm going to move on and say that they didn't just stop there with the potential bloat of the game. They went 20 school buses farther. I don't know. Let's see. How many weird... Let's see here. They jumped 11 swimming pools filled with sharks. Yes, I feel like we're jumping the shark here. For sure. Hero facets are hero customization choices that allow you to choose a playstyle before the game starts. They are effectively super talents. Here we go. They're effectively super talents that you select, and they are stylized really small down here. Stylized right next to the passive icon hover. And some of them are very complicated, while others might be something as simple as cannot be silenced. So, while innates I'm a bit mixed on, I'm pretty much fully confused on where facets came from. And this patch, both in playing it and in reading it, has me, both as a player and a wannabe designer, confused. Did we need this? I don't think that we did. And while my Dota friends and I are not hardcore ranked people, we do lean on the higher end of the MMR spectrum, but we are not, ranked players per se. We tend to play things like Ability Draft or PvE games when they come out, like Siltbreaker or Magnum's Labyrinth. So we're not competitive esport people. But we are older generation gamers, probably. And I will tell you that pretty much all of us took double takes and a giant Y with 4 question marks when we started reading this patch. And while the patch is fun, it does beg the question, does all this need to be added to Dota? Or, for that matter, as a design question, to any game? Is there a certain point where we can say the game is enough? I'm asking these questions for you, my audience, because I know my answer is I feel overwhelmed. I feel like this is too much. I'm not actually going to focus on anything in the patch here. Specifically, this is not a video entirely designed for Dota players. This is not a patch review, so to say. So let's look at something simple here. Alchemist. Alchemist is a hero that gets gold when he kills creeps, minions, around the map. Anything that he kills, anything that he last hits, if you will give him an innate bonus gold, and this has a timer to it. So the more he kills in a short period of time, the more gold per kill he gets, up to a cap. I think it's like 30 gold extra or 32 gold extra. It's changed over the years here and there. And last year they changed it into an innate passive. So he was one of the first heroes to actually have this. He has the facet Seed Money and Mixologist, where he starts with an extra 250 gold. Now heroes start with, I believe, 650 gold. I've played Dota so long and I really should know this. I believe it's 650 gold, so this means that he starts with quite a bit of extra gold. Not quite like 50% or anything like that, closer to 30% or... Anyway, math aside, Mixologist decreases his Berserk Potion, an ability that he has, the cooldown by 50%, and the cooldown of his ultimate by 30%. No, not his ultimate. His stun by 30% during his ultimate. The words are like right on top of each other. I apologize. I've been sick this week, so I'm not perfectly better yet, and I'm struggling here a little bit. Anyways, so it reduces he throws a stun, it reduces the cooldown of that, and during his Chemical Rage. And Chemical Rage is an ability that just makes him go crazy. He gets tons of regen and tons of attack speed, and he's a kind of cool hero. But see, now we have a hero that has 5 abilities, a passive ability, and then 2, and these are some of the simplest, 2 different ways to play him. That's a lot. And that's a lot for a relatively simple hero. Now we could go down to, mind you, I really like some of these abilities. I just don't know that they needed to become innate or facets or whatnot. Let's go down to a fan favorite, one of the most played heroes in Dota, Hudge, the Butcher. Inspired in part by the Butcher of Diablo 1, Hudge has a meat hook that he flings and brings you to him. So you can play focused on his meat hook over here, where his damage is decreased. It says 50% in the patch notes. That is not the number I was seeing yesterday, I think, but maybe that's true. I think some of these patch notes might be outdated. I know some of the screenshots are. Or just not quite accurate or something. Anyway, so damage is decreased, but the farther away the target is, the more damage they take from the hook, based on a percentage of the distance, not as some random number or anything. So max range of hook, I think, is something like 1300. I'm not sure if that includes or excludes the search radius of the actual collision. But so at 1300, you can get a little over, 300 damage extra. So you can hit something like, I think 505 is what I was calculating yesterday. 505 at max rank, level 4 of this ability. Now, if you're not a Dota player, of course, that makes no sense. So why am I saying these numbers? Just for comparison, the normal hook at max rank gives 360 pure damage. Pure ignores all magic resistance and all armor. So 505 or 500 versus 360 is a significant percentage difference, but you have to hit it at max range. So if you're going to do that, this is pretty good. And even at early ranks, 10% of distance is still really good. It's really good damage in the early game. Now this other facet is Dismember, his ultimate, where he locks you down, sort of biting you and cutting you up and whatnot. And it's effectively a stun that he channels, and he heals while he does this. And he deals damage based on his strength, but this also gives him bonus strength. Now, strength in Dota gives health, max health in this case, as well as current health. As people have reported, how this works is that it gives the full value of the current health of the strength. What I mean by this is it gives you, say, 100 health and it gives you 100 current health instead of like a percentage difference or something. It seems to be giving the full value of the strength and not just a percentage ratio like other situations in the game. So if you're at low health, this is actually kind of a heal right here. He also heals himself by default, so maybe people are reporting it wrong. I have no idea. But they also moved his flesh heap to a passive. This is normally, they renamed this to meat shield. This is normally his passive right here, where flesh heap and meat shield kind of combined, which meant that as you got kills with Pudge, you would eventually have to level up your flesh heap to get this permanent bonus stacking strength. Pudge becomes fatter and fatter, if you will, with his strength gain in the original game, and has been that way for a long time. So, I will say for the balance of Pudge, this is huge because he can basically skip meat shield now. And I've seen people do this against me, and I have done it, and it feels amazing. It's basically a free skill point. This out now also levels up specifically with his ultimate. Again, meaning I really never have to worry about this until I have to worry about this. So those are just some examples. I don't want to get too long-winded here. I'm already at 16 minutes. The point is that there's over 120 heroes in Dota. Shadow Shaman can turn people into chickens to give them invulnerability for 0.1 second and create extra chicken images that take extra damage and give no gold on kill. And he can turn his 10 Serpent Ward ultimate thing into a single Serpent Ward that deals 10 times damage and gives 10 times the value of gold, but does not have 10 times health. It only has 7.5 times health, so it's weaker to insta-kills. Silencer literally cannot be silenced. He can be chickened or hexed, however, and that does prevent him from using spells. Doom does not work. Doom is a massive silence, but Hex apparently does still technically silence Silencer. Anyways, so some of these changes, I don't think they do much. Like, this is not significant. This is amazing, actually, to me. But it's less the balance that I'm talking about here and more of the design choice here. Now, obviously, people are going to enjoy this game, so it can't be considered the worst thing in the world, right? So what do you think? Did Dota, or should any game generally just keep adding more features forever? Because that's what Dota's been doing. That's what Valve's been doing to Dota lately. Every year or year and a half, we're getting massive new patches. In 2017, we got talents, 8 talents per hero. You can choose one on each side. And then if you hit max level, you eventually get all of them. And then later on, they introduced, or around that same time, they also introduced things like Moonwells, which were eventually removed. Moonwells were an inspiration from Warcraft 3 that filled up with basically healing water, and you could activate them for a giant healing effect on your entire team while you were defending a location. I think some of them were in the jungle for a while, and some of them they're multiple in the base. They also introduced outposts, which were towers out in the middle of nowhere that you could capture, which would give vision and experience and all sorts of stuff. Those have been drastically reduced in what they do now. But personally, I'm going to say, if you're going to do something like this, you have to clean up what's already there. I feel like we're getting bloat, but we're not getting cleanup. That there, is a lot going on. And while Dota is a little bit about everybody being overpowered, and that's always been a cool thing in Dota, I don't know. It's a lot more to memorize. It's a lot more to learn. It's a lot more to have to consider. And it is kind of intense and kind of insane. I don't know. What do you think? If you're a Dota player, make mention that you're a Dota player. Make a comment. Tell me what you think. If you're not a Dota player and you've had these kind of experiences in other games, maybe World of Warcraft or another MMO, Warframe, I know I've personally experienced a lot of this kind of bloat in Warframe where you have all the stuff you need, but you now have a whole new open world area like Fortuna, where you have to kind of re-level all your reputation, because it's all new reputation and all new item grind and all this other stuff. And some people love this. Some people love things like Fortuna and, you know, the Eidolon hunts and what's the most recent area I've only played a little bit of? I can't remember what it's called. Where you're kind of in a alternate reality and you're doing kind of this roguelike run effect. And each one of these areas is its own little pocket dimension of gameplay where you bring in some of, most of, all of your tools and then basically kind of start from square one with new resources in each thing, trying to level up your reputation, get new weapons, different things. It's like a game inside of a game inside of a game. But it's definitely overall bloat. That doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It just means that there's more content. And some people love content. So, what do you say? Should design just continue to grow? Or should it have an ending point where you start perfecting everything and then you just say it's good? Until next time, YouTube. Have a great day.